Guys, listen. We've got a little bit of time together here, more than I'm used to, so this is going to be very informal. I'm going to walk you through who I am, where I went to school, how I became a funeral director, why I became a funeral director, and I'm going to go all the way through the process of what happens when someone dies, from when I get the phone call, all the way through the embalming process. If you want to hear about that, I'm more than willing to answer. Some classes want to hear everything that goes on in the prep room. Others don't want to, so I'll walk you through that. We'll talk about caskets, we'll talk about vaults, we'll talk about pretty much anything. So if you have a question, raise your hand or just butt in. It's very informal. I will answer if I can. Try to keep it appropriate. Don't ask me something that you know I probably can't answer for you, okay? Well, we're going to start out with a little background of who I am. Mrs. Jolson said my name is Tim Kinnard. I've been doing this for quite a while, coming in and talking. I've been a funeral director. I'll go through, I graduated from Luxembourg Casco in 1989. I have two children. Rachel Kinnard, she graduated. She's a sophomore at UW-Stevens Point, and my son Travis is a junior here. After I graduated college, I have a little different history of how I became a funeral director. I went on to college at UW-Platteville. I had my bachelor's degree in animal science. I was going to be a veterinarian, and I got out of college, and my family business, we've always owned funeral homes. We have one in Casco, one in Algoma, and we also own furniture stores and things like that. So Wiesner and Massards. It's my grandparents and great-grandparents. So I have been involved in funerals and people passing away or dying my whole entire life. My father died when I was 5 years old, so I've been exposed personally with it at a very young age and all the way through. People ask, why do you want to become a funeral director? Is it because your family wanted you to do it or because you wanted to? Because I wanted to. I like to help people. That's something, as a funeral director, you're going to do a lot of. You're always going to be helping people through their hardest time in their life. And I believe when somebody dies, that is probably the most traumatic thing you're going to go through. If it's a friend, if it is a sibling, if it's a parent, a grandparent, nobody is ever ready for that. Someone may be sick and dying, and until that day actually happens, you have a whole nother plethora of feelings that come in and really take over. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. After I went on to Platteville, I worked out in the animal field for 10 years. At 30 years of age, I'm 45. At 30 years of age, I decided I wanted to go back into the family business. So the only mortuary school in Wisconsin is in Milwaukee. So because I had my bachelor's degree already, I had my prerequisites for my chemistry, my physics, my biologies. I drove every morning. I left Casco, that's where my house is, and I drove to Milwaukee, and I went to class from 8 in the morning. Sometimes my labs went till 5, and when I was done with class, I drove back home. I did that for 2 years, not on Saturdays and Sundays. My family was here. I already had children, so I was not going to move down to Milwaukee to get my funeral director's license.
So that gives a whole new meaning to commute.
It was, but you get used to it. It's something that I was dedicated I was going to do, and it was the only school in Wisconsin, and I certainly didn't want to live in Milwaukee. That wasn't an option for me. While I was down there, obviously I took all my classes, and classes in mortuary school, you're doing a lot of biology things. You're doing a lot of psychology things too, because I do deal with people. I'm not a professional counselor or a psychologist, but we do hear a lot of things when we sit down with a family, good and bad sometimes. People have some tough things they're dealing with, and gets very emotional at times, and I try to be there to listen. That's why I said being a listener is probably the best thing you're going to do. How many of you have been to a funeral already, lost someone in your family, gone to a friend? A lot of people. In a small community, that's normal. Now, when I was down in Milwaukee, if I would have asked somebody that, people don't go to funerals down there. It's totally different than up here. Down there, you don't even know who your next door neighbor is living 10 feet away from you in the city. Up here, when somebody passes away, you might say it's my neighbor, and they might be a half mile down the road. That's just what we do around here, and that's great. It's a wonderful thing to have people care for someone when somebody passes away. Our previous superintendent here, Pat Saunders, I'm going to use him as an example. When he came here and I worked with him, I'm on the school board. I'm your school board president, so I'll be handing your diplomas out to you when you walk across the stage. When Mr. Saunders was
You
here.
have to get there first.
Oh,
Tim.
all right.
Sorry, I don't want to be the
And I don't want to see any of you anywhere else along the way, so everybody behave. When Mr. Saunders was here, people usually joke with funeral directors because they don't quite know how to handle them. Funeral directors are supposed to be scary people that don't have much of a life, and so I try to break that. And, I always tell this story. I have a bunch of tattoos. I drive a Harley. I don't live in the basement. I travel all the time. I have a lot of friends. My kids are involved in stuff. So that's who I am, and that's who most funeral directors are. Not like the movies where we have our prep room in the basement and we wear black all the time. That's not who we are. We're normal people and have normal lives, and just chose to become funeral directors to help people out when somebody dies. I'll go back to the Mr. Saunders things. He always used to say, well, I'm just not comfortable going to visitations, and I don't know why people, it's not that important to go when someone dies. I always say, if you can't go to the visitation, and we'll talk about that, at least a phone call, an email, even a text message saying, hey, sorry you lost grandma or grandpa or mom or dad. It does mean a lot. And he lost a parent while he was here, and the school board, we all went on our own and drove to Green Bay, where he was from, on the west side, and went to the funeral home. And after it was all done, he said, I didn't realize how much it meant to have people just come through the line, shake my hand, give me a hug, and say, I'm sorry. He said, I didn't realize that until it happened to me. And Pat was a grown man. He was